This is the Dog Savant Podcast with your host, Brett Endies.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Dog Savant Podcast. This is episode 36. I'm your host, Brett Endies. Today we're going to have a guest, Bill Church. Bow Wow Bill, he is a dog trainer. We're going to talk to him in a minute. Before we get to Bill, I just want to take care of some business. If you've been listening to the podcast, thank you so much. I love your questions. Keep sharing this. You know, if you're new, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like instead of put a review in for this podcast. It's the only way that other dog owners are going to find this and they can get the information out there to help them like it's helping many other dog owners in the past. So I really appreciate all of you who've been supporting and listening to the show. If you want to get more information on what I do, you can go to my website, dogtrainingla.com. You can go on my YouTube page, youtube.com, dogtrainingla. And of course on iTunes, it's the Dog Savant Podcast. Okay, thanks guys. Let's get into it with Bill. Bill is here on Skype with us. Hey, Bill.
Hey, Brett, how you doing, buddy?
Bill's one of my favorite dog trainer guys. He's a good person. He's a good guy. He's been very supportive over the years when some people haven't. I like what he does. He does good work too, just as a professional. Maybe tell everyone about yourself. I'll shut up, talk about you, what you do, your experience, how long you do it, type of cases you see, what you got going on right now. Let's hear it.
So I'm located just north of Seattle, Washington. I have a little ranch. I kind of do my own thing, Brett. I work with a lot of rescues. I rehab dogs that are with the rescues, as long as their heads in the right space as well, and they want to benefit these animals. I've been doing this since I was a kid, and absolutely love it. I've been running my own business here since 2007, and I also do some dog walks, but I mostly help dog owners, families, and I can do the obedience, the precision work, and we can get your dog a ribbon. But I find that most families just want a well-behaved, well-mannered, cool dog. And
is that what most of your phone calls from new client potential, people come from are about, they have a problem or
yeah,
their dog listen in just real life. They don't need the dog to sing and dance. They just need to do real life obedience or resolve an issue they're having.
Absolutely. And that's where I live out here in the sticks, but I'm right by Seattle. So I'm downtown in condos, and I tell people, the three variables that I'm always having thrown at me are the owner of the dog. They're all individuals. The dog itself is an individual. And then we have the environment that they're working in. And so it's always kind of a switching, moving target, and pattern recognition is what I'm doing. I come in there and I'm looking for when the relationship went awry. And a lot of times it went awry from the get-go with the misunderstanding.
Pretty good at detecting the second you walk in the door in that first phone call, like you can just already know from your experience where this is going pretty quickly.
Yeah. After years and years of doing this, you kind of hear the same situations over and over, and you hear the same misconceptions applied to that animal over and over. And it's basically the people are overlaying their own perceptions upon this different species, and then they're also trying to think with their emotions.
I was just going to say emotionally driven. I was going to ask, because that's what I find as well. And I think that, we'll talk about this maybe in a bit as we have in the past. There's training that actually will pander to that emotionally driven interpretation or misinterpretation, as almost like a snake oil salesman or a false prophet would make you believe in something based on an understanding of human nature and taking advantage of it, instead of helping them understand within themselves and getting that self-awareness. Because being a good dog handler is almost all about self-awareness in the presence of the other dog. Or the dog, right? I think I'm a dog sometimes, sorry. But yeah, the dog, right? I dropped Jordan's goddamn mic. You see how good his mic was after all that shit? Anyway, that was that noise.
Thanks, Jordan.
We love you, Jordan, but here comes Jordan. Sorry. Pick on poor Jordan. Okay. I know. He's gritting his teeth.
Yeah, I mean, there's a fallacy. People need to know that there's 42 logical fallacies that if you adhere to this logical fallacy, and if you use this logical fallacy, it's called a fallacy for a reason. And one of the fallacies is appeal to emotion. And we see a lot of professionals do that because a lot of these cases require confrontation and meeting these problems face on, man, and head on and right there. And that's it, is that, and that doesn't feel good. And it doesn't feel
anyone,
good.
For you too. You're just trying to help. You're willing to do it. People don't understand. Look, you wouldn't say it if you didn't think it was going to make that breakthrough happen, or at least you know it's worked in the past, so it's your best from what you understand human nature to get through them, because you know what's going on. And right, it's always the human end of the leash that is the biggest and, make or break it, for a case, I find, at least.
Yeah, they have to be dedicated and committed to this dog, but they also have to see what is. And that's what I'm there for, is because they're trying to think with this emotion, and then they have professionals that are trying to appeal with that emotion on top of that. Sometimes, they've had 5 or 6 dog trainers, and then I come in and I introduce actual logic to the equation, and it kind of it clears the air, but it also doesn't feel good, because sometimes we have to correct a dog, we have to correct behavior, and that dog might not appreciate that because of the past life that they've been given. Honeymoon's over, so to speak, and they want to test to see if you're a sucker as well. And that's basically, a lot of times they've been taught that most humans that they deal with are suckers and can be walked all over. And so, that's where I come in. But I also tell people, don't believe a word I say. Let your dog show you.
See,
if I'm full of crap.
The results should show almost instantly if you tap into this thing
That's
that
right.
you're talking about. Yeah. And real good trainers all have that experience. We're narrating not because of our own egos, from just, hey, all these unrelated people tell us this is working. No one's saying that the dogs ever were mentally or physically at harm. And we just keep coming back because they're asking us. Yet the other kind of training, we won't even mention it by name, is what we're seeing almost more than new cases is retrains that have tried that kind of training because it felt better in the advertising and the rhetoric, yet there were no results. And what they tell you is, well, if you don't do it our way, then you're going to have to beat the dog into submission to make them listen, which is, that has nothing to do with it at all. It's a connection. There's rules, there's structure, and there's, look, any kind of internal growth, whether it be mental, physical, it's not going to be comfortable to get to the top of the mountain, And if it's like, hey, dog, you shouldn't feel like you're going to die because you encountered a dog on an everyday walk in your neighborhood, learning to kick and scream a little to get through that, to see a calmer state of mind, to say, hey, I'm not going to die in an everyday event. That isn't it. Why not get a dog to feel a little uncomfortable for, just to get him through that misinterpretation of how even the dog's handling everyday life, let alone the owner.
Yeah. Well, I call it the come to Jesus. And that's it. Is sometimes we need a pretty big moment of stress, because what they also need to realize is that what's going on is stress with that dog. It's just prolonged through longer periods, and this is having a detrimental effect on the brain, the muscle tissue, all this stuff, the way that the dog sees the world. And sometimes I'm like, hey, knock it off. Look at me. You're good, but you need to act this way. And then they're kind of like, oh, finally somebody gets it. Somebody's going to take care of this.
To the point.
Yes. Yeah. And this is relationship building. And same thing too, is if I saw a kid acting up in church or a class or something, I'd be like, hey, what are you doing? Are you, what's going on? I want to find out, do you need to go to the bathroom? What's going on? Why are you feeling the need to interrupt? Or, there's a etiquette.
There's a reason. There's something going on that should be addressed or fixed or remedied or corrected.
That's right.
Not ignored, not waiting for it to stop and dissipate and then rewarded or let it, like.
Yeah.
I'll tell you about a case I had yesterday where the dog is paralleling their 3-year-old child. And it's funny because the male of the house gets it, and he's like, can you come for my wife for the kid too? Because it's so amazing how she's following hook, line, and sinker. And every time I'm telling her, hey, the dog's finally calm and not overstimulated by everything around it because it's laying in its place, chilling and relax. Oh, he looks sad. That's your interpretation, because I'm asking him to have rules and not have a free-for-all, as we're doing with the child. And I give him credit for being open-minded enough to let me cross that line a little bit, where I was like, hey, like she was literally breastfeeding in front. I guess we're talking about it now. Literally breastfeeding in front, which is, it's her house, whatever. But what the husband pointed out, which I'm like, man, you'd be a good dog trainer, was the kid has an issue God, I hope they don't listen to this podcast. The kid has an issue throwing shit at the television. and has broken three or four TVs, including hotel. I mean, this is bad stuff. And the kids start throwing stuff while we're there at the session. The dad corrects the behavior, like, hey, don't do that. And then the kid goes and runs to the mom, and the mom gives him the breast to teat, which at 3 years old shouldn't be doing that, right, in my opinion. But furthermore, is getting and the husband goes, do you see what just happened? I told him he shouldn't do something, and instead of you reinforcing it, you just did the opposite to tell him that it's even worse than if we just rewarded him in the first place. And he goes, that's what you've been doing to the dog, and that's what your dog trainer's trying to tell you. So if you're not listening for your dog, how are you going to do it for your kid? And this is what's happening with permissive parenting. It's the whole movement of the psychologists do this. It's the same thing, because they're creating monsters because there's no correction where they can be able to self-correct as adults and not be complete assholes and self-indulgent, consumer idiots. They should be compassionate people who connect with other humans, not having to hear everything they want to hear or feel good all the time. Sorry for the diatribe, Bill, but these things get me heated a little bit, because it plays into the kind of training that we have to kind of fight against these idiots putting information out or trying to harm our reputations by putting true information out there. Because it's not so much dog, it's a mindset of people that just applies in our realm, with our profession.
Well, I tell people we're bringing the dog into the human world, and 85% of my clients are female. 85%, dude. That's almost 9 out of 10 that are, and that's where I say, you've approached this with an emotional, and you're a nurturer by nature. I get it, but that dog's going to look at you like a sucker, and you're paying me here now. Like, I'm here in your living room, and you're paying me to hear some of this stuff, and I'm going to be honest. And that's the thing, is that even if even if these people need to rehome the dog, stuff like that, there's certain things that doesn't happen too often, but I'm going to be honest, because I'm just going to do the cost benefit and, what's going on. And it's just so crazy to me that, especially women. And I use a lot of times the analogy of how do you feel when you got a good point to make in a conversation and a guy just shuts you down? Or have you ever heard the mansplaining term or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Or if you're, somebody's trying to mansplain you or just, and you've got a good point, or you've got something to add of value to a project or something, but they look at you for your surface, and that's what a lot of times these people are doing with these dogs, is they're just looking at them, and they're emotional dumping grounds, dude. They're like cute, and they dance around, and that's about it. It's a one-sided relationship. And I'm like, this dog has a purpose, has a function, has independence, and the wants and desires of this animal are just important to that sentient being as your wants and desires are to you. And that's where I come in and be like, look, I'm kind of like an attorney for an animal, and I see these situations where this animal is an awesome dog, and they just need some guidance to get the to equalize that benefit of the relationship. And hopefully by the end of what I'm paid to do, that's where we're at. And that's my goal, is to change the different form of what's possible for that animal, for the better, and to educate the person. But in the end here, I'm in it for the dogs, dude.
It's not all just training technique, equipment, treats, collars, whatever. It's just an understanding and the relationship. And look, what you said about 85%, I see a lot of young female clients, as a pattern too, but it's almost politically incorrect to say that. It's not a negative thing. Like you said, women tend to be more emotionally driven, which makes them good nurturers, better parents. But, there's a balance. And sometimes with dogs, it's not so much like parenting. It's almost one-sided, as if it was all hardcore, ex-military dad being your only parents, or, that's your only option. For some dogs you can let it slide. There's plenty of dogs personality-wise that you can indulge on this shit. And if you take care of their basic needs, they get enough exercise, you get a pass. But I know with me, the dogs that I see as a pattern, 20 plus years at this, thousands of times over, it's that. And again, we see the owners as a pattern, whether it be that or it be people with a more emotional type of mindset, or some people that want to phone it in and they want the fun stuff, but they don't want to do the work or the time. They don't want to take their dog on a walk every day just to connect with them and do the exercise. And it's like, they put their housekeeper, me, I work with a lot of celebrity, a lot of high net worth clientele. And it's challenging. You know, why am I successful with these people? Because they're like, crap, this is the only person who's ever told me this shit in my life. Because I'm like, look, I'm like the only one willing to come help, because in LA, it's not an easy gig to be a dog trainer. It's an expensive place to live. And you have to be like, look.
People are hungry, dude.
Yeah, it's like, if you want me to help you, you need to do exactly what I say, and I'm going to tell you what I'm seeing. Like you said, you walk right in, you scan it. If not on the first phone call, you know darn well what you're going to be walking into. And I can be like you're saying, look, even if you know with another owner the dog would be fine, you might recommend that rehoming or having someone handle the dog affairs more exclusively is a better option, because you just want the dog to be successful. And
well,
then
especially powerful breeds, you know, powerful.
Yeah, oh, dogs that are serious. My Rottweiler,
yeah.
I mean,
Carne Corso, dude. I had this Carne Corso that was scary, dude.
I had one actually a couple weeks ago. 2 police officers, they rescued him, bit the police officer man. He had to end up using his uniform on, sprayed it to stop it, kind of corrected it a little, but also went after their other pit mix, ripped it up, like ended up like pulling its like whole midsection open. Still trying to rehab it. We got a little headway, but the guy's got, it looks like a zoo enclosure in his backyard just to manage it. He doesn't handle it anymore. And they saw me once. We did a lot of work. We got some headway. They even we were communicating, but they really would have to do an intensive rehab project. And what's challenging is the dog doesn't even trust them. So step one, and that's scary because it's these big, powerful breeds. There's a safety risk, and they're intense-minded and strong. And his issue is he came at the dog too strong. And you know what happens when you come at these dogs head on? They're not going to submit. They get even more pissy on you. You got to finesse this.
They're going to test you.
And you got to be a step ahead of them and say you're better at playing the game of chess than they are, and prove it day after day till they trust their Bobby Fischer or whatever you want to see it as, you know. So that's these dogs are too crafty, and with the wrong owner who you know is emotionally not capable, time not capable, or just they don't want the dog for that reason. They want, oh, I like the cute this or that. You're not going to have your cake and eat. They're called bargaining with nature, where people even want to do the training and then allow the shit that created the need to train the dog in the first place after they got the training done for the day. Like, it doesn't work that way. It's like rehab. My brother does that for a living, and he said they don't drink ever again. I go, they can't have one cocktail? One drink sets them off. That's how this works.
Right.
With animals, it's life or death. It's not, oh, I have a little this, I should exercise more, but you still live another day as humans, and you can process it. Dogs, it's all or none, black and white. It's a type of mind that you're saying that's not how people even think. They just cohabitate with us. They interact with us in a certain way, but they have such a different perspective. They're in such a more in tune with the energy, and their senses are different. It's so different, their interpretation of the relationship. And if you tap into it, it's beautiful. If you undermine it with your own selfishness and project too much shit on it with a dog that has different needs, you're done. And it's the recipe of why every dog has behavior problems. And that's where it's not a mystery to guys like us yet. We're sitting here trying to sell people on the reality of things, because not everyone wants to think in a rational way, especially in our time period. It's a hard uphill battle sometimes. You know,
sometimes I can't believe the statements I say, like leave the dog alone when he's sleeping, you know, like, or, you know, just weird things. But it's also, you know, you said a huge thing, dude. It's all about trust. It's all about trust with any relationship, and rapport. Rapport is power. And people just think automatically that this dog trusts them and has rapport with them instantly. And it's not like that. Just
that's
like
their narcissism telling them that.
That's right, dude. You know, and there's something there. And I'm like, what if I got right in your face and started trying to, you know, kiss you or something? Or what if I, you know, just was like really just super creepy or uncomfortable? How would you feel? And what if I was persistent at it? You know, because that's what's happening.
You're demonstrating a lack of response back that encourage. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's it. And
dogs see that, it frustrates them. It's really
and they try to be polite. And I'm telling them, look, we speak with our voice. They're speaking 24/7 with their body. You know, and when they get away from you, that means they don't want to be with you. So when a dog follows you, that means they trust you. You know, let's get them to trust you. Let's start to build this trust. Let's start to build this rapport with this animal before we start thinking that we're entitled to, you know, be I don't know, be all over that animal and be in that animal's face and you know, dressing them up and I don't know. You know?
This is the way people with their kids, they let. I mean, there's like no boundaries. It's a safety issue at times, or kids are revving the dogs up or not. You know, back to that with the kid who was breaking TVs. Boundaries with the poor dog. rolling toy trucks over its tail. I mean, I even says, look, this is beyond like, I go, this is for the dog. Dog's gonna have enough of it. It comes to a certain time and place, and it's gonna bite your kid or someone else's kid.
Yeah, and that's a huge liability, dude. You know, these people that I work with, they got a lot of money in their targets, man. And I have to remind them, you know, and they have a lot of good stuff, nice stuff, and they'll destroy their shit too, dude. Can I swear? Am I good to?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll destroy. I got stories about these dogs that I could tell people like, look, dude, this is going to benefit your life in so many ways, not just as a peace of mind thing, but you're going to have open lines of communication. You're going to understand this animal on a totally different level. You're bringing your relationship to its fullest potential. And now the dog's fulfilled and your understanding of this animal. And that's it is, you know, bottom line. But just like I was saying, you know, I don't tell them to believe me. I was like, let's get through the first and let's see what the dog does.
That's what I do too.
Yeah.
I don't even go beyond a first lesson when I meet a new client. I'm like, let me come to your house. I'll meet you for a couple hours. We'll go through as much A to Z stuff as we can. And then if you want to hire me for the long haul, I'll tell you your potential options to fix the problem. And that's that. You know, and luckily, as a more experienced dog trainer who gets a good reputation, you know, you can kind of come in with that confidence. You know, when it was like, oh my God, you're my one client for the week who called me, I'll take, you know, but now it's like, look, you know, and I think admittedly, I think I would take on those cases then that now, although the dog's all it's with the right owner or the right person could be helped, I would just, you know, cordially decline taking some cases, or you say I'm too booked for this month and here's someone I recommend that, you know, sometimes even more of a board and train type thing, which I don't do much of because I just rather get right to the heart of it with the owner and work with them out in public and stuff. But, you know, but some people, it's like, you know, when you get experience, you just can tell by the qualifiers, instead of them being like, yeah, I see results, I get it, okay, what do I do next? Or versus having them make you feel like you're qualifying your humanity for the whole first session.
Yeah.
And I'm like, first of all, you probably did some homework to see our reputations before you had us in your house to handle your dog and pay good money.
Yeah.
Second of all, like, if I was going to abuse your dog, like, I mean, like the way people like almost, it's like such a dumb, it's like, are we in the same universe right now? Like, because what 10 other people before you saw and said in the same exact situation is not what you are, yet you feel very valid in your thing, and that's the emotional thing. It's almost we understand, and I guess you, like me, have cute, almost funny ways to deal with it and get them to almost see, because you got to invoke awareness no matter what, but then sometimes you're like, you know what, no matter how hard I try, I couldn't, and then I have to just move on to someone who's more, and they could have an easier or more difficult dog on paper, right? That's why puppy owners are hard, because they got the warm fuzzies and it's hard to turn that shit off for the
too cute.
Kids. Yeah, and honestly, I feel with puppies, they need more structure in order to start, and the fun play indulgences happen after the order has been conditioned into them and the right habits for life.
Yeah. Well, I got a dog behind me, you know, that ever since she was a puppy, you know, she's been right here with me. You know, I don't know if you can see her.
Yeah, I see her.
Yep. And so that's what she does, dude. And see how chill she is, you know, and that's it because I sit here and that's what she's done since she's a pup. And if she jumped off or anything, I'd get on her, man. And I'd be like, what are you doing? Get up here right now.
How to self-correct.
Yeah. And it was like lava. Like the floor was lava. Like when we were kids, you know, we'd play the floor is lava. And as soon as she's on the floor, I'm like, you're on lava and I'm on you. You're dying, dog. Get up here. Let me save you.
It is a constant. It's like place training. That's why I do a lot of it. It creates an order. I say your house is like a big company. Your employee who's meant to show up to their cubicle and do an assignment at a time can't handle the entire operation. So when they show up to go to their cubicle and their commands to lay their focus as their assignment, and you're monitoring that and give them the next assignment when it's the proper time to get their paychecks, they're getting their needs met. That's why we play that game and create that system, because it's a very streamlined way that I find owners can get that connection happening. Because even owners, it's like, well, if your dog needs to listen, have them go to their place and keep them there until they do it, and then when they're calm, release them to the next event happen. You know, basic, you know, just to get the dog to feel that, oh, I'm working for a living, and de-stimulating them and learning how to just hang out with their owners and not like, what's next, waiting for the next shoe to fall all the time, and almost following their owners in an overly impulsive way, or doesn't connect with their owners because they don't trust them and they want to avoid them or overreact to guests and the walks, they're 10 steps ahead and all of that. That usually is a symptom of dogs with this lack of structure and understanding of how the relationship should go.
Yeah. Well, duration commands are so important. I mean, it shows the dog contrast, and it gets the dog out of that limelight too.
Focus building, yeah.
It focuses.
It's like meditation for dogs. It really is. If you ever meditate,
I call it that. Yeah.
Single pointed focus. And what's funny is that all that purely positive. Okay, I said it. That purely positive stuff. It's almost it's a complete opposite of that. It's complete distraction, ADD type thinking, and it's so bad. It makes the dogs who are master pattern followers think 10 steps ahead, and they're like, oh, I know you're gonna make me sit and spin this and that and the other thing you give me. And for some trick stuff, you want to build those patterns, but for real life applied obedience, when life is free flowing and you're communicating, you don't want that anticipation based thinking. The dogs are too, and that's what happens with the treats, is the dogs are like, oh, I know if I sit and give you a paw, and it's like the dogs think that they have mental control over you because they do something, and then you give them a treat because they're not stupid. They know the order of things. You got to almost be smarter. You got to trick them and make them think when they do assume something, so they can be mentally conscious when it's hard for them to stay in the moment, to be mindfully present.
Yeah, you gotta challenge them, and that's it. Is you gotta apply a challenge. But I also, I tell this as I call this dog money. When people are always handing them treats and all this stuff, and just imagine how it would affect a child's behavior if we gave them $20 every time they said please their whole life. By the time they're 20, 30 years old, we think they would be developmentally delayed because every other word would be please, because it's been rewarded throughout their life in a way that has had a pretty big influence on their behavior. And this is what I see with the dogs. And I mean, the book that people need to read is Biological Boundaries of Learning. And it talks about what's wrong with this type of training, purely positive, right?
Who wrote that?
Here,
I never heard of that book, actually.
You have it? I got one for you, dude. I'll give you an extra copy. I got like 3 copies here.
Bill's the man.
Yeah. So, there
you go.
Yeah. Healy, Martin Seligman, and I don't know, and Hager.
Recent or is it older?
Oh, dude, this is back in Skinner time.
And then they'll tell you that those people were barbaric, archaic thinkers, and they didn't know better back up until 10 years ago.
Yeah, well, I say let the dog tell us, and basically.
Yeah,
So even in the introduction, the initial theoretical encounters between ethologists and comparative psychologists did not have wide impact for the general process learning theorist, instinctive factors affecting what problems need to be circumvented. And basically what this book says is that, Skinner's work was done in an acoustic chamber called a science lab. And the animal that we're working with, and even if you were to look at Pavlov, I mean, with the salivation cups, they don't take into account that they basically surgically attached it, removing half of this dog's jaw and face and put this up into the salivatory gland. And dude, I don't know if you've ever had surgery or had, been injured or anything, and if that has any effect on your behavior, absolutely it does. And plus the drugs that they're giving these animals, I'm sure, and they're not even mentioning any of this stuff influencing the behavior. And then we have, these guys that say, we bring these dogs into the world with us, the world that is rich with external stimuli, infinite amount, and where chaos is inevitable at any minute. And I often tell my clients, we can't control the world, but we can sure train our dog to exist with it in us. And that's what the companion training that I offer with it is a basic obedience training, obedience work. And that's it. I'll give you a copy. I mean, these things, I think at Amazon, they go up and down, dude. So I'll buy them when they're like $30, $40, because they'll go up there at $500-$600.
Have you ever read the Lindsay behavior manuals? They're very thick books. The Lensay or Lindsay, Landsay.
Yeah, I got them here somewhere.
That's more like basic behavior stuff too, like just matter of fact. It's not emotional driven nonsense. It's
observations, man. It's observation and that's it,
I mean, look, you've posted on social media. I try to stay out of that forum, but stuff that's probably a little more political driven. That's observation-based fact. It is what it is, and people get so up in arms and they start labeling you like you're a horrible person. You know what I mean? And that's what's sad, is that it's like, whoa, maybe there's a flaw in you to not be able to see reality as reality is, and there's a lot of people
Boom.
selling you the snake oil that makes you feel valid because of all the whole way the social media and internet's worked, and people who are really not bright enough to understand themselves are now getting validated as being true in what they're thinking because other people say sure because they want to sell them something.
That's right.
That's it. And
Yep.
people who are wise to it, who speak out, say, "Hey, everyone, you got to see the reality. Pull the curtain back a little bit." They're being called things, I mean, that are as horrible as Nazis and shit. Like, I mean, it's unreal,
Salacious. Yeah.
unbelievable. Yeah, and it's like it really is. It's sad. You see how it's affecting the way children are raised. Our poor dogs are being treated and lived with and trained. It's just it's a disaster show. That's why people who like us who are just, hey, we're going to stand strong because we know what we're speaking is true and it works and it's helping. It's almost like at this point now it's good because there's enough people who are standing strong. Back not to 5 years ago, you know, when there was a certain person going after all these dog trainers 4 or 5 years ago, and I had just started my business here in LA, and it was like I was just barely getting clients. Put all these hashtags so people would look up my name and find the dog abuser because I didn't do purely positive dog training.
Yes.
I mean, that's what these sickos do. It's like I was the one guy helping. It's like I don't understand this. Everyone in the real world tells me I'm doing a great job, and I come home and see this shit in my inbox. And it's like now I've realized because people become wise, there's people who think in a way beyond, again, the dog realm, you know, political or other areas of life, psychology, whatever. I'm in the hunting world, that kind of stuff, all of it.
Yeah.
And they tend to be, and they have people who think like them. So they get this rah, rah, rah. But really, there's not a lot because you're in people's living rooms. Most people do think pretty rational and have regular values at heart.
Yes.
And they're not, you know, they're not Nazis or freaking red hat wearing conservatives. They're just good people who are decent and look out for another good person and that they're living their life, you know, and not trying to tell people how to think, talk, act, and all this nonsense. That is just another example of why the purely positive movement took something that you do to teach dolphins and some basic tricks to dogs, you know, and then turned it into this is how you resolve their behavior problems and relate to them.
Yeah. Well, and real quick, back at Biological Distings, $90, $90 right now on Amazon.
Holy.
That one's yours, dude. I got.
Hey, look there. That's my birthday.
Yeah, there you go. Happy birthday, buddy. So, what was I just saying? You know, it is what it is what you just said, and the truth, and that's what's more important to me. Like, I can care less what these people think of me, and they're paying me before. I mean, I can care because I'm a businessman and I want to appeal to them, you know. But I'm gonna burst some bubbles, dude. You know, I'm gonna bring some conceptions that are going to. Or I'm going to bring some truth to some misconceptions that they have about the relationship, but I'm going to bring it in a logical way, you know. And I start with how they think versus how this animal thinks, you know. And people are smart, and not only that, but we resound with truth because it is what is, and that's what you said. It is what it is. And people ask me, and this kind of getting into a more philosophical discussion, but they ask me what is truth, and a lot of times, and I think that this boils down to a lot of narcissism as well. There's a word that I call the biggest lie, and it's called solipsism. And check it out. It's SOLIPSISM, and it's basically the belief that your own perception is truth, and that's all there is, instead of the truth and then our percepts coming together to form concepts so that we can get a better understanding of principles on this plane of existence. And so that truth, and people ask me, what is truth? And especially solipsists will ask me that when they realize, oh my God, it's not just my perception here, you know. And I tell them, truth is that which has undergone the actualization of having occurred or is occurring now. And it's that simple, dude. And that's what, you know, and that's what we're here, dude. We're professors of truth, and we want to bring it. And truth and natural law they coexist together.
Natural laws, the natural law to things that you can't fucking negotiate or bargain with, or your impression of, as strong as it is not going to change it whatsoever.
That's right.
It
And
is
there's
what it is. It's just,
and,
and that's a lot of things in human realm too. Humans have a certain nature that we want to deny, and once we embrace it and understand it and control it and direct it and relate to others with it, we're fucked because we see each other too externally,
yeah.
and we see each other in how we think externally, not the depth of what we really are.
Well,
You
they
know,
deny the
Buddhist.
relationship. They deny the relationship with their dog has gotten off the ditch that it has, and then they hire these other people. And when you know about human psyche too, is that you're 10 times more likely to act based on emotion than you are on pure intellect. That's why, like all these big corporations spend billions of dollars trying to get their products to be viewed emotionally, and like a lot of times it's sexually. They want to
More
sell it.
now, yeah. I mean, if I
Yeah.
remember, I mean, I think I'd assume you're close to my age, and when we were younger, advertising was a little more. Since I grew up in New York, it was a little more just like, this is what it is, this is the facts about it. A little bit of a flash or showing it doing its thing, like a truck commercial. Now you don't even see the fucking truck being driven. It's all about feel good and with your family in the back, and it's all the. And they get it, but it's like almost like if you see what's going on, you got to fight against it and like raise your kids not to get sick because it almost makes you not have a purposeful life because you're not existing in truth, which isn't easy. It probably feels easier to exist in that flighty thing and not be so,
Yes.
I don't want to call it enlightened, but aware of, and it causes your own anxieties because you have to see that truth in yourself too and call yourself out on that bullshit to be able to call others out on it because we're only human. None of us are the Dalai Lama. We all are doing that
Yeah.
thing, but to know it and control it, that's what internal growth is about, and that's also it makes you more of an aware person that almost has the right to speak the truth because you're existing in it in your own daily life, whether it be with your dogs. That's why I make videos of my dogs. I bring my dogs out to my clients. I'm like, look, this is my truth of my dogs. I wouldn't ask you to do it or expect this from your dog if my dogs didn't do it or I did
Yeah.
it myself. And that's where you can't be. I know trainers I've heard of don't even have dogs, or their dogs, most purely positive trainers, they have dogs that they have issues too, that they won't show out. They won't show them doing the work, and because they're not owning. I'd rather them say, look, you got me. I'm going to have humility here. Maybe I am a little, out of my realm, or, yeah, my dog should listen. And boy, am I a hypocrite for not, for not having a dog that I shouldn't tell others how if I don't. But no, that's the thing is that's that narcissistic thinking that when you're supposed to think that way, you hit harder on your shit because it's a shield. It's a way to deal with criticism. I know it in a personal realm. I've talked about it. I can't get, but I very closely related in a couple areas of my life over the years with and that's why I'm like, oh, these people like almost like I gotta, because they're so hard to deal with because you make complete reason. You say, hey, you're doing this, that, and the other thing. Do you see what you're doing isn't helping dogs? Here's how many retrains I have. I don't invent it. I can show you the books. I have enough testimonies that people have seen 5, 6 other trainers, done the vet medications, the behaviorists, the whisperers, the blah, 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 click. And they're like, you're doing something because you're teaching me how to understand what the hell's really going on. And yeah, I mean, sorry, look, but it really is challenging, to sometimes have like these other people, the narcissistic people who like don't like hearing that truth instead of like dealing with their own shit, attack them. I guess that's the point I'm trying to come full circle to make here. But and as you see, everyone, right, people watching this, listening, this is an emotional thing because we really care about dogs. We wouldn't be going through this. There's easier gigs,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
we really love what we do and it's been proven to work, so we're going to keep spreading the message and take the hits and because we know it is helping in the field. Look, how many great messages do you get like, oh my god, this is working, thank you,
Yeah.
where it makes it worth it from the asshole purely positive or someone who makes a stupid comment on social media or something. That's why I keep going, just because it works, and that's why I want to. It's good to do this where we share and we talk about, or like, hey, two guys talking about the same experience. Maybe they're not insane or they're inventing something. Now, it's
Yeah.
not an opinionated way of talking about it.
Well, and I talk to purely positives, and I'm like, hey, look, I'm here for those cases that this doesn't work on. Don't just throw the dog or euthanize the animal or anything. I'm here, and then when they bring me a case like that or they have any questions, I'm honest with them. But I just show them, hey, look, I started out like that, dude. I wanted to be. I understand it, but then it worked until it didn't work, until I had competing motivators, or just a dog that wasn't food driven, or a dog that was over possessive, and there were certain cases that you just have to observe, and knowledge through experience, dude. That's what we're doing. All we're doing is we're sharing our own knowledge through experience, and the patterns that we see through the eclectic knowledge base that we have is of working with thousands of dogs through decades. And a lot of times it is simple. It is a simple fix, but a lot of times we're dealing with families that are going through a divorce. Like, the dog is just a symptom of the problem. There's certain things that are happening that are, just delving deeper. And sometimes we are that too. We're kind of that psychologist for the family too, I find. And our own experiences of struggle help that way too, just and losing my dog, losing my dad, certain things of grief that I can help with my clients, because we walk the walk too, dude. And I tell people, why do you think I really want to hurt something that I've traded my life to work with? That's the last thing I ever want to do, is hurt a dog, ever.
You just know reality is what is going on. It has to be dealt with a certain way to resolve it and make the dog better, feel better. It's not about them listening. It's about the dog feeling better. I always tell the clients, it's not about you. It's not about me. It's about the dog. Like we said earlier, I'd rather not say half the stuff that I have to say to people bluntly and honestly or creatively to get them to see reason or apply what they need to apply when I'm not there, But it's because we love the dogs and we live for it, and it, at this point, I mean, look, what else are we going to do? But it really is, it really, my issue is I don't like how people who, although they may disagree, they're the ones who we're fixing their bad work, and they tend to kick and scream instead of go back to the drawing board and maybe look at the error in their ways. They'd rather hurt someone who's helping dogs, which is doing twice as much detriment because their training is causing issues. Sometimes owners don't go beyond that and say, well, I guess my dog's got a lifelong problem, or we'll put it down, for the issue or get rid of it. And the people who are saying, no, that's just because that kind of training doesn't think straight. Well, then we're the horrible dog abuser people because we want rules for dogs, and doing nothing whatsoever that's abusive, yet asking dogs, expecting more from them because they have a greater potential than people use them as just emotional things. Like you said, they pour all their crap onto them, and that's not what dogs are about.
No, I mean, they're predators, dude,
Aren't they?
And they, they're awesome. I mean, their noses are extraordinary. We have 5 million sense cells. They can have up to 200 million, and they're extra pair of eyes. They're an extra nose. They're, as I'm sitting right here, I got somebody watching my back, literally, my girl, and that's it. And the heart and the dedication that they give us, and they give it themselves to us in ultimate service. It's our moral obligation to be good stewards of these animals, because we are indeed higher consciousness beings, and to spin them out of control in a world that feels good because we're not ready to do the work, and because we literally live in the emotional arena that's void of logic. And the other aspect of this life, I truly believe, is to merge the emotion with the intellect. Boom, boom, and we see that in a lot of religious teachings, all that stuff, but about being emotional, and it's not about being logical either. Like, I love these dogs, and that's what, I live for them every single day. When I'm on vacation, I'm with my dogs, and I truly live the life of my dreams. I feel like I don't work. I have jobs. The shitty part of my job is the shit. And, and when the dogs go to heaven, they don't live as long. And then also dealing with salacious attacks from people that have no clue what I'm doing. And those trainers that live in the emotional arena. But I ignore them, dude. You just kind of have to ignore them.
I just block. It used to affect me more at stake. You can tell that's a nerve in me, and it's like, oh, you shouldn't get affected. If I didn't get affected, that means I don't give a shit, and I wasn't that convicted in what I do. And it's not about me and my messy. Those people their ego, they want to be the next Caesar Milan. And look, the only reason why I even saw that show was I had something that worked, and I saw a lot of shit out there wasn't, and I wanted to spread a message and be willing to take the hits, for the sake of maybe more dogs would be helped than the ones that are in their living room in front of me, and that's why we're doing things like this again. That's why I'm doing more social media and things that I I do, but I took the hits and I'd stop for a while because the YouTube, it just discouraged me. And I still get, and I just learned, just delete it, move on. Sometimes I just post stuff, I don't even look back. It's because it is working. And for the one person it helps, even if there's an equal amount of shitheads, I'm still going to keep doing it, because it's just, but it's sad because it's, God, these people are doing nothing good for dogs. And it's like, is there, my thing is like, God, is there like some power that can just tell them in their heads, like some mind control, like cut that shit out and think straight and leave the good people alone and help dogs the proper way, and let's do it, And again, I have to clarify, proper way isn't my way or your way based on our ego. It's the reality of the nature of what is going on with dogs and the relationship humans have with them. That's it. There's no.
It is what it is.
It is what it is, man. That's my aunt back in New York to say, it is what it is. Like when you're a kid, because there's no bullshit growing up in New York as a kid. We're not going to get our emotions felt. It's like, oh, you're crying. It happened. It is what it is. Deal with it. Another day. Move on.
We got a lot of people here, man. We can't really stop and cater to that stuff, and that's it. It is that, but it's also, the reward that we get from, working with these dogs. And they can teach us to live in the moment too, dude. I tell people, they can forgive and living in the moment. There's so many things that they can teach us if we're willing and open to that. But it just takes time, man. It takes time and reflection. We got a lot of distractions in this world with these boxes that are in our pockets, that people are staring down in all the time, including myself, yours truly.
Terrible.
It's that endless scroll. The people that design, they know behavior, dude. The people and that's where I think a lot of these behavior studies were funded because they were ultimately pointed towards the human species. Because we have that conscious mind that's very manipulatable. Is that a word?
We can use it. Yeah, that'll work. Yeah.
Where the dog, they have that, that mammalian brain, and there's certain ways that we can talk to that animal, but there's also holes in that program too. Especially when you rely too heavily on that dog money and not enough on the consequences, real world consequences that we see in the universe around us.
And it's not about, because people think if you don't rely on the money, then you're relying on the gun to the head, and that's not it either. It's about someone who you respect, you have proper conversations with, you spend mutual quality time with, you understand each other, you have an integral relationship, whether it be a working, a real relationship, a family. It's just a different type of communication. And look, again, it's not that much difference when you have kids. If it's all in emotionally, you're done for as well. And it doesn't mean you're beating your kids or putting them in their room all the time, but it's like, no, you're not going to get this. Yes, you're going to get good grades, and you're supposed to get good grades because you want a good job when you get older. And if you don't get good grades, we're not going to beat you or punish you, but we're going to expect you to try harder. We're not going to say, oh, it's okay, you get a trophy anyway. That's raising weak-minded people, weak people physically, people that are confirmed that their mental illness is valid instead of treating it and working on it, which we've seen in posts that you've made, other, in non-dog related things that people don't see, and then I just observe and eat my popcorn, but, I see that. Look, I had Robert Masters, Robert Masters, and not everybody likes him,
Are you talking the vegan dog food post that I made, or which post?
I think it was one, there was another one you did about, I think it was like some kind of, gender thing or some shit.
Yeah.
I don't cross that.
That's
Robert likes to troll for sure. Robert Masters, and he. I just watch. I love it. And you guys happen to be my friends because you guys have. You guys are truth. You guys aren't ego. A lot of people. I'll tell you. I started making fun of one guy. And I like the guy. I always tout him. I won't say his name. I made fun of just his physical appearance, just to be funny. I can make fun of me. It's just jokes, but some people didn't like it. I'm sure that spread quick because I had my little secret message group we used to have before my show came out, and I had that little group for a few people that we talk a lot of shit and stuff. And I was like, and I guess, and a lot of people like that guy, fuck this guy Brett. I was like, okay. But there's some people that have always been consistent and true, and it's clear, and it just shows in how they, there's a lot of good dog trainers, but I still think there's a little bit of bullshit. You know, some guys just wears a little too many hats, you know, just like he's got a gimmick instead of just being fucking the information, and that's it. Say it how you'd say it to anyone in your living room. And there are people doing that, and I appreciate that. You know, and you see, because when they get pushed, you see how they respond. You see how they speak. You see how, you know, how they handle shit that they can see intent or context. I've always only tried to be funny, you know, but some people took shit personally. Some people, you know, so, you know, but there's good trainers, but there's also like, if you're going to work with a trainer or take they got to like kind of live their life a certain way and walk the talk, like with their own dogs and their family. And, you know, they don't have to be everyone's got fucking issues, and we all have our cross to bear, but they should be forthcoming about that. Like, I'll tell my client who has anxiety, whoa, I would never call you out in anxiety if I don't see it myself, what I'm seeing in you. So let's talk about it.
Yes.
Projecting onto your dog. And that's
and I'm starting to feel you, man. like you're starting, not you. I'm talking about the client.
And no, and it's not even like in a negative statement. I'm like, we have to talk about this because your dog feels you, and there's no denying it. Because I have cases, it's like, you're doing good training, you're following the rules, but your dog's a frenetic mess because there's something exuding from you beyond the leash, collar, and place command right now. You know, so we have to, you know, address that. Yeah.
Connect with that dog. And I've told people that you got to connect with that dog. And I've had people ask me, how do I do that? And I'm just like, okay. Or what does that mean? That's what they ask me. What does that mean to connect with the dog? And I'm just like, man, it took me a second because it's just so esoteric to me. You know, it's like,
it just happens.
You know, it just happens. And it's just something that it's a building, you know, and it's almost like, I mean, when you're courting somebody and you're building the relationship of love, dude, and literally when our dog looks at us in an MRI, the area of the mind that lights up is the love area, dude. They fall in love with us. There's certain, just like we fall in love with our parents, you know, it's not a gross type of thing. It's a loving, nurturing type of thing. And that's that area that we want to build to light up in that dog's mind when they look at us. And that takes just time being with that animal and getting to know that animal and observing and seeing, oh, wow, that dog loves a ball. Oh, wow, that dog really gets crazy with that ball and starts to tear it up into little pieces. You know, just certain things that might be indicators of behavior to work on, and you know, or to build motivation, you know, where to introduce boundaries, you know, that's it. And people ask me too, dude, they're like, how long do I train for? And I'm like, dude,
how long is this going to be? When are we done? It's a lifelong thing, dude. It's just more intensive at the beginning, especially if you're resolving. It's like rehab, but you know, if you go to rehab for, let's say, 30 days, you're still gonna have to maintain that shit for the rest of your life. So it's for dogs, it's the maintenance of it. Because look, you have dogs that are well trained. You get the wrong pet sitter or the family member who's not on board, it's all out the window, as if the dog was never trained, or at least around that person. That's why even with my own dogs, I make sure I hire the proper handlers to be around it. My girlfriend's dog, I made sure she was being a certain way, so her dog who had reactivity is much better because she worked on her own in addition to the work we did with them together to integrate them, you know. So it just has to be, you know, it's like I couldn't, because what I saw was when she wasn't around, the dogs are fine, as we see with our clients, and we're just around like, oh, you're like a different dog. But with you, there's more at stake. They're protecting you. There's the undermining of the relationship. So you have to do that. And then when you're around them, it just complements the structured walking and all the stuff we do to integrate them as a pack. But it's not going to ever work beyond me doing it if the person whose dog it is doesn't do it either, you know. So
well, it's just like rehab, like you said, dude. If you took somebody out of rehab out of 30 days and put them back in a frat house and expected them to do just fine, you know, with one person being a sponsor or whatever, the likelihood of them succeeding is nil, dude.
They're out.
You know, and we're setting them up for failure. And that's the other thing too, is and a lot of times I won't take those cases unless everybody's committed. And sometimes the biggest person that isn't committed, who I need committed, you know, they're the ones that the problem stems from. You know, the hole in the program, and that's where, you know,
that's always the case. That's why I get like people who like don't even want to be part of the client. I talk about the guy as a nanny for dogs, this wealthy guy. He's a nice guy, but he doesn't want to do it. And he's like, well, why do the dogs jump all over me and shred up the pillows when I'm home? But when I'm gone, the dogs are perfect for you and the nanny. And I see them listen because they know consistently how we are, and you're a different party, and they know that. And you're having more emotional stuff at stake with them, and they sense that too. Well, we're just hired help, and they know it. We're there to work
Yeah.
alongside them, and we're just coworkers to them.
I asked them, why do you think that is?
Some people have a hard time internalizing that question. That's the problem.
Well, dude, and a lot of times it hits them like a ton of bricks. And then sometimes one guy was like, well, that's why I'm asking you. And I was like, and I'm asking you, you know what? I mean, I have my reasons, but I want to hear, I'm curious. You know, what do you think? Why do you think they jump all over you? And they don't to me when I walk in here, and I can stand right here and the dog hasn't even touched me. He sits perfectly beside me, just waiting to be patted very politely. Why? And then put it back in their court. You know, sometimes they need to have realizations. You know, they're so used to having the answers just thrown at them. Sometimes they need to come up with the answer on their own.
Totally.
And same thing with the dog. Yeah, absolutely.
It almost makes them defend and deflect it more when you force, even though you know the answer, it's common sense to you. To them, if they don't realize that, they won't unlock that thing that makes them then do it, at the very least when you're not there. They might do it in front of you just to appease you, because some people just skip the trainer yelling at them, you know. But other than that, it's like, no, like you've got to get them to conceptualize it on their own so they actually can think that way independent of you forcing it to them, you know, in their head.
Yeah. And a lot of times we boil down, they think of me as a friend, you know, or they think of me as a companion or somebody. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's all fine and dandy when you guys are playing and stuff. But when shit hits the fan, this dog is going to not look to you for protection. He's going to look at you as somebody who's going to defend against this. And there's so many human contraptions that invoke fear response in that dog's mind that they have no clue. I'm from a skateboard to a garbage truck, right? And we have to be there for that dog and show them, look, that this doesn't require this response. This is a fearful, stressful response, and day in and day out. Just imagine if you lived your life in dread every single day and were afraid of something.
Right, because they know it's out there. Even if it's not going to be right in their living room, the next walk is going to be a potential to see it. And then they get that hypervigilance, and they just become so overstimulated by that insecurity. They just think they're going to die, and they go blind to it. You have to keep them conscious. So they're like, oh, it's just another dog. Oh, it's just a skateboard. Oh, it's just a greeting. And I can stay calm enough in my sit to get attention, instead of like this thing that people have now created. Every time a person appears, I get an autonomic nervous system response because everyone's rewarded that and encouraged that. And then they wonder why I'm jumping on them, you know, or having issues with reactivity at greetings or new events. It's just, that's really what it is teaching people how to integrate this into their life and relate to their dogs. So I said, even when the training's done, they're still training in essence in the way they're interpreting their dog, even when the leash and collar is not on and the commands aren't. It's a relationship. Oh, let's see. All right, we're at about an hour. You're my longest podcast to date, Bill. Congratulations.
Am I?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do shorty ones. But I'm having more guests on, so thank you for doing this. I want to have more people on to share, have these kind of conversations. It's different insight. You know, sometimes I'll just on my podcast just give information or talk about, you know, I'll do like a thing about positive reinforcement or the errors and I did one emotional versus rational thinking, kind of along the lines of what we're talking about. But just having more trainers. That's why I told you on your podcast, I think it's great what you're doing. I see how there's other people sharing knowledge. And look, guarantee if we were side by side, we wouldn't be doing the exact same thing technique wise or approach, but our thinking and interpretation is on track, and that's what drives us to make the right choices that ends up to the same result that gets the job done in a humane way that makes sense to the dogs. That's the point of this. It's not about always this tool or that tool. You may get to that place with a different tool or a different approach, but the understanding of that dynamics, that has to be in every damn trainer. And any trainer who doesn't think and understand this, that's the problem, because they're thinking like the owners who we're trying to help think differently. And if the professional comes and says, oh, you think just like me, keep validating it because they're trying to sell them the snake oil, it's a problem, you know, and it's not helping dogs. It gets in the way of the people who are doing. Look, we have enough clients. We're always overbooked because of the epidemic of out of control dogs in the world now, because of the purely positive movement and indulgence in our human nature more than ever, you know. But it's sort of like, you know, we have to get these owners to kind of see reason here, you know, and understand it's not about how you feel, yet it's not necessarily bad for the dog or yourself to go against the grain and what's always comfortable, emotionally, physically, whatever it is.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
I get
And
off.
viewing.
Everyone knows this is my podcast. I kind of try. I go off to Pluto. I try to come back to Earth as best I can. What was the first thing I saw in this whole thing? Oh yeah, that's kind of what I said. So sorry. Stay with anyone who Bill shares this with. I do my best. My ADD is strong, just like the dogs I work with. I try to hold it all together in this crazy brain of mine.
We all live in the same ADD world. And if anybody wants to see the interviews that I do, it's at facebook.com/bowwowbills, BOWWOWBILLS. And yeah, man, I'd love to come on anytime, dude, and always love speaking with you. And even if we were together and doing two different techniques, if Brett's technique worked better, the next time I'd be doing Brett's technique, because I will do what works, and that's it. Is that we're always learning and adapting and evolving as dog trainers, and and that's why I like networking with my colleagues, and I appreciate you doing this as well, Brett.
Yeah, I appreciate it too. And that's the whole point is it's like taking things that although you might not even agree with or you do to help what you're doing, it's not about you versus the other one unless the other one is doing something that is clearly proven to not work and is hurting the people, because anyone who's getting the job done, the more balanced minded people, that's really where this has to lean, that's so thank you. Keep doing the online shit. It's great. I like it. All right. Anything else you want to share? Anything else going on that you want to tell people? My four viewers and listeners that might be watching this.
No, man. Just keep doing what you're doing, and yeah, check me out. Oh, I also have a live site, bowwowbill.live, www.bowwowbill.live. But that one's a paid site, but I'm still building that one a little bit. You can join, you're welcome to, but that's $20 a month, and I'll be doing some more training on that. But I'm doing the glass thing, which we didn't talk about, but it's fine. I find that a lot of dog trainers, you got the hunting thing, I have the glass thing. A lot of people are artists, and they have different things of that fuel that passion too.
I think it makes people like, it's even my clients are like, oh, it's interesting. I see it. So it makes you more human. It makes them trust what you say more. You're not this figurehead that's so polished and, higher than now. You do make mistakes. You live a life. You're not like, it's like, this is me, but I have some information based on my experience. I think if you listen to, it can help you. That's kind of what we're all trying to say.
Amen.
Amen. Good talking as always, man. Have a great one.
You too, Brett. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye,
Peace.
buddy.
Bye.